Listeners, I am thrilled to be hanging out today with Hope Cogen, an award-winning dog trainer and owner of High Hopes Dog Training. Hope is also part of the Experts Q&A and Pets directory found in our latest issue on newsstands now, or you can always see more at theroanoker.com. Hi, Hope. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, and a very special guest, too. If you can't see him on our YouTube screen, you are missing the cutest dog in this room. And this is Mooshi.
This is Mooshi. And Mooshi is fairly new to me. I got Mooshi last July as a foster, and I was keeping him to get him well. He had just had a leg amputated and had some cracked ribs, and so I was going to be just getting him strong and healthy so that he'd be ready to go into a home.
And then
he hasn't left.
And I think you call that a foster failure, I believe.
That's what it's called. Yes.
No, that's a good thing. Well, we're going to give him his spotlight here in just a moment. But we are so glad to have you and to learn more about the work that you're doing, not only for our human citizens, but the canine citizens as well. So thank you for all of that. As a dog mom personally, who spent a lot of time over the pandemic training a puppy with shark teeth, Henry, I know that while you might have a very fun job, it's not always the easiest job with the dogs and all the clients that you got to represent.
That is true.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about High Hopes Training and, what you do to help local dog owners.
Well, we have private lessons and we meet one-on-one with our clients. Mm-hmm. We typically do that in people's homes, but we can also do that on Zoom. During the pandemic, I adjusted my whole company so that everything was virtual. So I had group classes on Zoom, like 12 different people with their dogs.
I witnessed you go through this,
screen.
And it was wild to see how wonderfully you were able to integrate that, considering it was through a screen, right?
It was so fun, and we had people from all over the country that were participating. It was really neat. So for people who are not local, we do still offer the Zoom lessons.
Awesome.
Now with our training facility, we can also have people that live kind of local, but a little bit too far for us to drive to their homes. Those people can now meet us at the training center, and we can work with them one-on-one there. So we're able to reach more people because we have some different options to do that. We also do group classes. We have puppy kindergarten. The next level is beginner obedience and good manners. The level next is intermediate obedience and problem solving. Then we have our Canine Good Citizen class. We're adding more Canine Good Citizen classes now. After the pandemic, it took a little while for the dogs to kind of get socialized and used to being around different people and different environments. And then when the pups get their Canine Good Citizen certificate, we have a therapy dog class so that the dogs and their humans can get prepared to take the test to be a therapy dog team.
Right. And side note, so a fun note, actually our cover star, Ragnar, you actually helped train him.
Yes. Ragnar went through our training classes with I guess it would be called his dad and his grandma. And they started in beginner and worked their way on up. And Ragnar got his Canine Good Citizen certification and then went on to get therapy dog certified.
And now he's helping people through their grief. What a wonderful circle. Yes. I love that story. Thank you for helping him because he's doing such good things for people now.
He's a good role model for people who want to do that kind of work with their dogs.
Absolutely. So thinking about, pet advice and dog training tips, you do answer one of our questions in our frequently asked questions in our pets directory, but was curious if you had maybe a top question that you get a lot that maybe you don't necessarily cover in class, or maybe you even do. It's one of the first things you start with.
Well, there's a lot.
It's never ending.
No, there's a lot. And there's really the human component to dog training is huge. The dogs are pretty easy to train.
That's interesting.
It's the humans kind of get stuck in either thinking the way that they trained their dog 20 years ago is still the best way to do it, or to treat their dog like they would raise a human child, or just things like that. And I find that the education part for our humans is really substantial. Sure. A few things that I have been focusing on recently is there seems to be a trend of using aversives in training, and that means using corrections to correct behaviors that you don't like. So, popping on a choke chain or using a shock collar. And that has been training from so many decades ago that there has been so much research done to show that that's not certainly the most humane way to train, but also not necessarily the most effective way to train, and that positive reinforcement is the way to go.
Sure.
And it's challenging sometimes to teach people that, because there is a misconception that, like, oh, all you do is give the dog treats and you have to have treats for their whole lives. And that's not the case. It's just a matter of teaching and shaping behaviors that we want from our dogs. The dogs don't know what to do. You know, like when we want them to sit calmly when somebody's pounding on our front door, and they're like barking and spinning out of either fear because someone's coming into their space or excitement because they're happy someone's coming. Like, that's normal canine behavior. To go, 10 feet away and lay on their bed until we let the person in, we have to teach them that.
Right.
That is not something at all that they're going to know how to do on
Henry,
their own.
I tried on Henry, and that one didn't take. So sorry to anybody who enters my home. I'm so sorry for the scream howls.
Well, but
You'll see is welcome.
Did you have us helping you with that?
No, I didn't. So that's obviously going to be next on my list. I took some of your tips that we were learning just, on your websites and things like that. But there's always more to do. I mean, that's the thing. Henry's almost 3, but there's always something new to teach him or reinforce positively. I mean, that's something that this training doesn't end just because you finish the course.
Right. Oh, no, there's always more to teach them. And I feel like the larger the vocabulary that we can share with our dogs, the better. I really feel so strongly about learning for any individual should feel good, and it should be fun, and we should be motivated to want to learn new things. And that's what positive reinforcement does. The people enjoy the training, the dogs enjoy the training, and if everybody is enjoying it and seeing progress, they're going to be more likely to continue. So our classes and our lessons, we really try to make them fun. There's a lot of laughter. We have a good time. And that way the people enjoy coming, so they'll keep coming back. And it motivates them to work with their dogs at home. The other point that I'd like to share, because this is fairly new for me, I've always known, I've been doing this for 23 years, so I've always known and always talked with clients about the fact that humans talk so much, so much, and we repeat things, and then our voices get louder and higher, and we keep repeating. It's just how humans tend to communicate. Well, dogs don't communicate that way. They are very clear and concise with their communication. And I know that we all talk to our dogs.
All the time, constantly.
Right? At home, we chat with them. And I've done the same thing with my dogs. So when I had my dog Spartacus for 10 years, and he was a helper dog, he worked with me in the company, and he helped teach dogs how to be calm around other dogs and teach dogs how to play and teach dogs to be calm on leash when they see another dog. He helped with all of those things. And I talked with him all the time. And then, unfortunately, he died in this past July. And I'm like a year and a half divorced, empty nester, no dog. I had no one to talk to.
That's a tough,
even though Spartacus didn't talk back to me, it's still like the companionship.
Yeah.
And so I could only last like 2 weeks. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to foster. And so Mooshi kind of fell into my lap, and Mooshi happens to be deaf, and I found myself talking to Mooshi all the time.
Well, and this is great, because this is a great transition, because my next question was about Mooshi and the fact that, I noticed you using sign language.
Yes.
Because Mooshi, if you haven't listened yet, he's a triple threat of a very good boy. He is a rescue, he is deaf, and he's a tripod. And so right now you're speaking sign language to him. So how much did you have to actually teach yourself, or maybe you already knew some, as you kind of take on this new endeavor of learning how to talk to your pet?
Well, I did like baby signing when my son was an infant. And my son, who's now 19, he knew over 100 signs of animals and foods and colors and feelings and all that kind of stuff. He was hearing, but I had learned as an educator, that's really a very healthy thing to do with babies. So I knew some things that I remembered.
You remembered
from
it
them.
after all that time, huh? Good for
But
you.
there are a lot that are the same, but there are certainly some that are different, that I would use for a dog and not for a child. So if I'm out with Mooshi, for example, the deer, that were in our yard during the winter, he would watch them and then almost seemed to be like befriending one that kind of showed up every night before bed. And I felt like, I should learn that sign. Or, he's watching the neighbor's cats a lot. I should. So if I felt like I need to know that sign, I would look it up, practice it a little bit. I keep a list actually on the fridge of all the signs that he knows. And it's cool to see that it keeps growing.
Yeah, you keep adding to the list.
Yep. But I add words as I feel like I need him to know those words. I started with just teaching him a few things each week, and starting with like the words we would use every day, like outside. This is outside. That's something you say over and over every day when you think about it. And then inside. This would be inside, him coming, like this little wave of the fingers is a casual come along with me, but then there's a much more formal come and then here.
As in, you better get over here.
Which comes along with the face, like come here if he's not responding. If he's in my yard, which of course is fenced and he's off leash, I can't communicate with Mooshi unless he is looking at me.
Right.
The first thing that we worked on was eye contact, constantly rewarding him for looking at me. So he is conditioned to kind of check in with me.
Oh, he's staring you down right now.
He's staring at me now. Yep. He also knows that I've told him that we're working. So it's kind of the two fists like this is the sign for work. So coming here, I told him that this was work. When we go to the training center, that's also work, which is different than this sign. This is play, and I'll explain. It's like the Hawaiian, hang 10 or whatever that means.
I didn't want to assume, but that's what my mind went
That
to.
means play. And so if we're, for example, going to go across the street to play with his Great Dane best friend, I've named his friends. So the dog's name is Winston. So I use a W, and I'll say, let's go. And then I'll do the W and then the sign for play. So he'll run to the gate and go, all those sounds. And when I take him across the street to play. So I don't sign complete sentences with him, but it's really kind of what dogs, even hearing dogs, do. Like, they don't know every single word you're saying. They'll pick out the words, like they would pick out their friend's name if you said it. They would pick out let's go. They would pick out play. And so that's what I've been doing with sign language to teach him. Going back to what I had started saying about us talking to our dogs so much, is that when I realized that Mooshi was like not even like opening his eye or looking at me, I started thinking like, oh, well, that's kind of silly. Like, why am I even talking to him? And I stopped for a little while, but you kind of do it for yourself. It's not really for the dog's sake.
Yeah.
It's for him. Deaf dogs tend to be Velcro dogs. They're very much attached. They can have really extreme separation anxiety. They can't hear if you've gone into another room and you're changing over the laundry. A hearing dog can hear that you're doing stuff in another room, so they know that you're still there, and they'll wait for you to come back. When I step into the kitchen out of Mooshi's sight, he doesn't know, because I have a door there, if I've left the house, or because he can't hear me. So he gets a little bit nervous with that. He's gotten much better as time has gone by. But when I'm working with my clients, and most clients have hearing dogs, there's a lot of repetition and fingers pointing and snaps and sit. Can you sit for mommy? And we talk about really being very simple and specific, because if with sign language, I was just doing all these signs with Mooshi, it would be pretty confusing to him.
Right. See, he's complaining about it already.
He's drooling. And it's the same with speaking. We speak too much, and the dogs need to know is this my person just chatting with me, or is this my person working with me? We talk about your posture and your tone of voice, what you look like, what you sound like. That lets the dog know, oh, they're in work mode now. So now it's time to pay attention. Saying things one time, your voice is very clear. What should your verbal praise sound like? What should the correction sound like? When do you give the reward? All of that is really important. And that's all teaching the people. Oh my goodness. You want more goodies.
If you can't see on the YouTube, we're feeding him treats from the table here with hopes that he won't start whining, but that's okay too.
Yeah. He's being a very good boy.
He's being a very good boy.
Such a good boy.
All capital letters. Well, I think that's really interesting that this isn't as simple as sit, stay, now you're done. Training is constant. I mean, like you said, posture, tone of voice. That's so much more detailed than simply sit and then running away. And
I think the psychology behind not only dog training, but just learning in general and how individuals learn is important. I always say to my clients that I'm not going to instruct them and say, this is how you do it because I'm the expert and I know what's best. I want them to understand why we do things in a certain order or pattern, or why I'm saying to stand this way or put your treats. Like, I want them to understand the reason behind it. When we understand things and they make sense to us, then we kind of take that on as our own information, and they'll apply it. If they understand it, it'll make sense to them, so they'll use those guidelines more, and that is so important to me.
Right, and it is respect. I mean, it's respect to you and the dog, and to showing that you're willing to put in the work, that they need to have the life they deserve.
And also the fact that, like, they're individuals with emotions and past experiences and thoughts, and I feel like we need to give them space to allow them to be who they are. I am not about like having robotic dogs doing things like on the spot perfectly. I wouldn't like if somebody expected that out of me as a human. So I don't expect that out of our dogs. A big thing that my clients are getting a kick out of now is my my stories about, mishaps with Mooshi. Miss Hope is struggling with her puppy because everybody struggles with puppies.
Once again, it's good to know. Even the experts got it.
Yes. Like, when he runs by with my Birkenstock in his mouth and I'm shouting, drop it. And then think, oh my gosh, he can't even hear me, but I'm stuck in the bathroom. And so, yeah. Or when, he pulls very gently with his front teeth, he pulls a book off of my bookshelf and brings it to his bed and then goes back and gets another one. And it's so cute. Until then, he lays on the bed with the books and starts chewing them up. So now I have my bookcase like gated from the puppy. So I'm doing all of that right along with my clients.
I love it. I love it so much. Gosh, he's just got the cutest face, you guys. I just can't stress it enough. So in thinking about, where do you go as far as dog-friendly spots? Where are you taking Mooshi? And this could be, restaurant, downtown, Greenway. Like, where are you hanging out when you're not in the facility training?
We don't go out too much because mommy is very busy running the company. When I got Mooshi in July, he had been hit by a car. And so he was surrendered to Bedford County, and he had a leg amputated the end of June. So he was really recovering. And when I brought him home, and he was 8 months old then, and he just kind of slept and snuggled with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got the dream puppy. But it was like, he wasn't feeling well, and he was stressed, and he was on pain medication. And then about 2 months later, when he felt safe and he was healthy, he turned into a, crazy adolescent puppy, which is what he should have been. And I was like, I am not getting a puppy. I need an adult dog. But he's really special. And when Spartacus died, I knew that my next dog had to be just the right kind of dog. I love pitties and the pit bull type dogs. I love them. They're my favorite. So that's what I wanted. I wanted a young adult, but it had to be a dog that would be able to work with me. So social with people and other dogs, smart, easygoing, definitely a certain temperament. And I wasn't sure that Mooshi had that when I first got him. But then when he started feeling better, and I took him out to some breweries. I took him to friends' houses. Like, I tested him out. I put him in different situations to test him out, and I was really pleased and surprised at how well he did and how quickly he learns.
Hope brought Mooshi into their office just so that everyone knows. And I don't even think Mooshi could get down the hallway without greeting everybody on the way to the studio back here, because he's so friendly. And as soon as you opened the door and he walked in, he ran straight up to me and gave me a great big kiss. Like, how great is that? You know?
Yes.
And obviously that's a lot of training on your part.
It's wonderful. It is training, but it's part of that is just Mooshi. Like, just like we all are kind of who we are. It's something that a huge lesson I've learned from Mooshi, as I have struggled over the past couple of years with changes in my life. A lot of people have been struggling with anxiety and depression and all that kind of stuff, and I have as well. That Mooshi, I believed Mooshi lived tied up outside. When he came into my home, he didn't understand about walking through doorways. Everything spooked him. He attacked my television set a number of times. The first few times I put it on, like hair up, growling, barking, jumped off the couch, tried to bite at the TV. It didn't seem like he was familiar with stuff inside of a house. I don't think that he had the greatest first 8 months of his life. And then to be living in silence because he's deaf is tricky. It can be scary. You know, he would be so scared to go into the yard at night with the shadows and all of that. But even knowing that that's how his life started, he is so joyful and so happy and loves to go anywhere and loves to meet anyone. And it's like that doesn't define who he is. That was his past. He has some things that kind of carry over from that trauma that he had, for
just
sure.
Like humans. I mean, just like people.
Absolutely. And we're aware of that and we're working on it. He is not a perfect dog by any means. But the fact that that was his life then and this is his life now, and he embraces this life now, like with all three of those legs. And it's such a big lesson for me, because I think as humans, it's easy for us to dwell in what used to be or what we expected life to be, or, you know, this isn't exactly what I want. And we get caught up in those things. And I watch him and I've learned to be grateful for everything that I do have and to really try very hard to, you know, enjoy moments. Find joy in every day. I mean, he does that all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's so special.
There is something special about learning something about ourselves through our pets, I think, truly. When we, when our dog Fisher passed away, and we went 8 weeks where I cried just every day, you know, and then finally we got Henry. But there was a lot of trial and error in finding the right dog for us. And of course, at that time in the pandemic, I mean, dogs were being adopted left and right. Remember, everybody was on a waiting list and it was almost impossible. And so it's sort of funny because I feel like sometimes the right dog comes at the exact right time. And Henry, in our case, was like made for us. And, you know.
Yes.
And so it's a sort of a bonus question, but how do you feel about that saying that dogs take after their owners? Because I got to be honest, Henry takes after me a little bit too much, I think. You know, maybe not with a scream howling at people. I don't do that, but, you know, just in general, being a little introverted.
I believe more that like we get the dog that we need. And we end up like, he absolutely needed me. I knew that he needed me. I wasn't sure that I needed him. I did not think that he was the right dog for me in the beginning. I really didn't. I mean, super special and lovely and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't think that he was the dog that I needed. And then I pretty quickly realized that you get the dog that you need. And his name, he had a different name when he was in the shelter, which I didn't think suited him as well. I like names. I think names are important. So I really wanted to find just the right name for him. I happen to be Jewish. And so I was looking at maybe a word that's a Hebrew word that means something that's significant. So the word mushlam in Hebrew means perfect. So that is why I named Mooshi.
Perfect. In all ways of the word.
Even though looking at him, knowing that he's deaf, you would think like, oh, well, he's an imperfect individual. He is absolutely perfect just how he is. I hope that as he and I continue our training, I really want him to become a therapy dog so that we can go into schools and, let children see that just because he communicates differently than everybody else, just because he's missing a leg, being a bully breed, we can't judge an individual on their appearance or anything else, and that those things really are quite positive things for him.
Right. Well, I hope the kids are ready for a bunch of kisses because he is clearly going to be all over
Loves
them
the
at just the
kisses.
right size. He's going to tackle them with love. Oh my gosh. So cute. So last question, because otherwise I'm going to be here with your dog all day and I'm just going to keep you here in the studio. Whether it's for you or for you and Mooshi, where do you love to play in our region? What do you like to do, again, in your very limited downtime?
Well, as my life has changed over the past couple of years, I really like being with friends. I really love connecting with friends. I connect with dogs very easily, and they're humans, but, connecting with friends is important to me. I love live music, so I sort of have become like the activities director and a new group of friends that I have that I'll find things and I'll post in a group message like, okay, there's this band this day, this ceramics thing this day, who wants to go? So I try to just find fun, different things that, there's either music or an activity, and then, the friends do it together. We've also had 2 paint your pet nights at our training studio.
I think they sold it before I could even sign up.
Yeah, we're going to do our next one is in April because they're so popular, and everybody looks at the picture I post and thinks like, oh my God, like all 25 people are artists, and it's not like that.
Yeah, I can't draw a stick figure.
No,
so.
I don't either. So we send a photograph to the artist 2 weeks before the class.
Oh,
so
cool.
she has photos of every dog, and
Nice.
she makes a sketch in pencil. And then it's all kind of sketched on the canvas. And at the class, she tells us how to do the background and how to add texture to the background or do this or do that. And then she says, when it's time to start for the dog, you start with the darkest colors first and do this to show fur or do this to, like, she gives you all those tips as we're painting. So it's not like you don't just have a blank canvas and start, not at all.
I just got a dark, scruffy black blob for mine. So
No,
yeah.
and that was so much fun. And the room is so quiet. Everybody's like relaxed and focused and painting. So like that, I've always wanted to do that. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me just make it a High Hopes thing and invite a whole lot of people. So I'm doing some of that too, things that I want to do. I want to be doing more things with Mooshi as the weather gets nicer. Mm-hmm. So including friends, with their dogs and getting him out in public, getting people to meet him. I get stopped a lot. I've been in the airport recently and going through the security, and a woman was like, "Are you Hope? Oh yeah, you're Hope. You're Mooshi's mom." Like she worked there, or I took classes with you like 10 years ago with my dog.
I run into somebody probably every day who's taken a training course with you of some kind, and it's remarkable because it does speak to your training, but also community building, and I think that's really important to note too. You're training our citizens, both canine and human.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, thank you for all you do. And thank you to you and Mooshi for coming on from print to podcast today. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. And please check out her business and learn more about group classes, private training, and more at her website, highhopes.net. That's high-hopes.net. And see more about our favorite furry family members in our March-April Pets issue on newsstands now or at theroanoker.com.